as we move now to our last segment. Juan?
Well, the anti-poverty group ACORN filed a lawsuit Thursday against the U.S. government that accuses Congress of punitively targeting the organization. In September, the Senate and the House voted on legislation to strip ACORN of federal funding following the release of a video in which employees of ACORN were secretly recorded giving tax advice to two conservative activists dressed up as a pimp and a prostitute. ACORN has long been a target of right-wing scorn for its work helping poor people fight foreclosures, fix tax problems, and register to vote.
We're joined by Bill Quigley now, Legal Director of the Center for Constitutional Rights. CCR filed the lawsuit yesterday on behalf of ACORN. Welcome, Bill. Talk about what happened to ACORN.
Well, ACORN has been just singled out for persecution by the far right, and it has, been harassed for years. But with this sting operation by these right-wing TV folks, Congress really shifted into overdrive, and despite the fact that I think most of the Congress representatives knew what they were doing was illegal, they engaged in a practice that has been prohibited since the Constitution was enacted, which is called a Bill of Attainder, which just says that Congress can't single out one person or one organization and punish them. And that goes back even to the English Parliament days, is the reason it was in our Constitution. And so Congress, though, put one sentence into the continuing budget resolutions which says no federal funds shall go at all to ACORN, any of its subsidiaries, allies, or friends. So the lawsuit was filed on First Amendment grounds, due process grounds, and this Bill of Attainder, and we have a hearing this afternoon in federal court in Brooklyn, and we expect another one next week. And we are confident, actually, that the judge will strike this punitive action against ACORN down.
Well, I want to play a recent exchange from Capitol Hill about this issue. This is Democratic Congressman Alan Grayson of Florida questioning Republican Congressman Paul Brune of Georgia.
Right. What does the Constitution say about bills of attainder? It's a simple question.
The Constitution says that Congress shall pass no bills of attainder, but this is not one.
All right. Now, would you agree with me that it is unconstitutional to single out one or more persons without the benefit of trial?
No, sir. There's a two-pronged test, and this is not a bill of attainder.
All right. Well,
so,
when I said I'll reclaim my time, I just quoted William Rehnquist writing the book The Supreme Court. He wrote that book and said you cannot single out one or more persons without the benefit of trial. Will the gentleman agree that bills of attainder are contrary to every principle of sound legislation?
There are two main criteria which courts would likely look in order to determine whether legislation is a bill of attainder. One is whether there's a specific individual entities affected by the statute. Number two, whether the legislation affects a punishment on those individuals. And
will the gentleman please tell me whether you agree or not that bills of attainder are contrary to every principle of sound legislation?
Bills of attainder are unconstitutional.
And contrary to every principle of sound legislation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And you know who said that?
Tell me.
James Madison in the Federalist Papers. The question is, will the gentleman from Georgia agree with me that the Bill of Attainder Clause was intended not as a narrow or technical provision, but as an implementation of separation of powers, a general safeguard against legislative exercise of the judicial function, or more simply, trial by legislature? Will the gentleman agree to that?
No, sir, I will not. And I ask counsel to help us with this, and I think all this is a determination of the court, and I'd like to yield to Mr. Sensenbrenner.
Well, I'm sorry, but it's my time, not yours or Mr. Sensenbrenner, so I will reclaim my time, and I will point out that what you just said you would not agree to is from a Supreme Court case called United States v. Brown, something I would expect you might know about, given your name.
Okay.
Listen.
Would the gentleman yield?
No. Listen, we are trampling on people's constitutional rights. And I think it's unfortunate that the mania that exists on the other side of the aisle regarding this one organization, and we know why that mania exists, it's because they've registered an awful lot of Democrats, continues to distort and waste the time of this committee and many other committees here in Congress. Enough is enough. I yield my remaining 5 seconds.
That was Democratic Congressman Alan Grayson of Florida questioning Republican Congressman Paul Brune of Georgia. Bill Quigley, your response.
Well, it's clearly a targeting. The congressmen know that the problem for us is this month it's ACORN, next month it's the NAACP, the month after that it's the ACLU. If they can just decide without any justification, without any hearing, without any due process, and that there are ways. There are absolutely legal ways that if anybody's accused of misconduct that you can suspend their federal grants or you can investigate. But this is not it. Here, Congress is acting as the prosecutor, judge, jury, and executioner, all without any evidence or any hearing. So that's really the thing. Plus, on the political thing, this is clearly an attack on everybody on the far left because they went after Van Jones, they went after ACORN, and if ACORN goes down, they're going after somebody right after that. So we need to stand up in the courts, we need to stand up in the court of public opinion and just say enough is enough. Let's be fair about how we do this.
Do you see any other organization being hit like this?
I think that there is definitely, if you look at these right-wing blogs where they talk about ACORN, they talk about SEIU, they talk about other democratic groups that register a lot of people to vote in that. So definitely there are other groups on the hit list. And if the rest of us, I mean, ACORN has made mistakes. They say that, and they're investigating those. And they have some problems that they have to deal with internally. A lot of big organizations do. But we have to stand up with them in solidarity in every place because when they go down, somebody's right behind them.
Finally, very quick answer to this latest news that we were just speaking with Andy Worthington about. This news come down about Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and the other 4 people being tried in New York's Center for Constitutional Rights organization has represented dozens of Guantanamo prisoners.
Right. We've been there for 8 years since it's open. The prosecution in federal court is, as Andy says, is a great source for this, is long overdue. If there is evidence against people, put it before a jury, let's see it. This idea of sending people to the military commissions, though, is really second or third class justice, which is just a political throwaway that we're going to be dealing with forever and ever.
Bill Quigley, I want to thank you for being with us, Legal Director of the Center for Constitutional Rights, as we bid our fond and painful farewell today to our beloved firehouse, which has been our hearth and home for the last 8 years. And I bid our farewell to its owners, Keiko Tsuno and John Alpert. We moved here just before the September 11th attacks. We were the closest national broadcast to Ground Zero. The firehouse became our shelter in the storm and has been for all of these years. I think we have occupied every floor of this firehouse. We began in the garret. Then, Juan, remember moving downstairs?
Yeah, so we moved down to the first floor.
Where the fire trucks used to come in and out. I should say the fire trucks that were led by the horses. They would come in and out in the firehouse bays. And now we're on the 3rd floor. Well, just above where John and Keiko live. When they're cooking broccoli, we smell it on the set. When they have a coffee machine that breaks, we're dripped on over the water.
And when the dog barks, we hear it.
And the dog often barks at views he does not appreciate. Well, Keiko and John will continue to follow the growth of the firehouse as one of the country's leading community media centers. We also bid a fond farewell to Rabi Al-Ghani, who greets us each morning. We now go on the road for 2 weeks, and then we'll be broadcasting from our new studios in an old graphics art building, which was occupied for years by printing presses as we take them into the 21st century. I want to let you know where we'll be over these 2 weeks because we're going to be broadcasting there, and any story ideas you have, we welcome. On Saturday, I'll be in San Francisco at the Green Fest. Then we go on to Fort Bragg, to Santa Rosa, to Corte Madera, to Berkeley, to San Francisco, to Palo Alto, to Santa Cruz, to Santa Barbara, to Los Angeles, to Fresno, to Davis, to Sacramento, to Ashland, Oregon, Eugene, Oregon, Portland, Oregon, and then we're moving on to Olympia, Washington. As well, we're going on to Bellingham and to Seattle, to Vancouver, BC, as well as to Victoria. And then we'll be in Bainbridge Island, and we'll be as well in Everett, Washington, and Boulder, Colorado, and Minneapolis, to Washington, D.C., to Philadelphia as well, and back in New York. And also, our friend Mike Kimber, we wish you very well. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez, with all the crew here of Democracy Now! An enormous thank you to DCTV and the Firehouse.